Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Good to see you all again. Thank you for being here at our LAC Summit. As you know, we have a whole week of sharing and learning. It's only day 2, so I hope to see you. I can see lots of people who have come back again and again, and I hope that you're finding that these sessions are really great learning opportunities. I just want to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about this summit. My name is Emma Burns, and I am the Professional Learning Coordinator at Consilience, which is the company that runs the Learning Analytics Collaborative and is the sponsor of this event. And I know that many of you on the call are LAC members, and so you already know that one of the reasons why we're all a part of this collaborative is that the LAC is all about a community. We make a community together, PLC, and we have these wonderful opportunities to learn and grow together. If you're not already a part of the LAC, I'll just let you know a little bit about what we do. And if you have any questions after this, please feel free to reach out and we can arrange a demo call. But just very briefly, as you can see, we are a platform and a service for schools that want to use learning analytics to improve and transform. Our mission is to support you to build a culture of data use. So what does that mean? It means using data to make an impact. And the way that we do that is we collect all the data that you have in your school, excuse me, the academic grades, but in addition to that, also demographics, well-being data, everything that you've got, and we collaborate with you to figure out how to present that data as information. Then we teach the users at your school how to use that information. So we provide protocols and tools so that your whole school community can gain insight about your learners. And we have over 100 visualizations on the LAC platform. And each one of those has been customized to answer the unique questions that every school has. So we have different dashboards for teachers who want to see their class. We've got dashboards for specialists who want to understand the impact of their interventions. We have dashboards for administrators and board level aggregate data. And we have dashboards for parents and students who want to know how individual students are doing over time. So we have over 50 schools in our collaborative from all over the world. And as I mentioned, we're all about sharing the learning. So one school develops a new visualization or a new protocol, and we share that information with other schools so that everyone benefits, everyone learns, and everyone grows. And I think you can see where I'm going with this. One of the ways we're doing that is at this virtual summit. It's our first ever virtual summit, and it's an opportunity for schools to check in and tell us where they are on that learning journey, where they're growing, and how they're developing those cultures of data use. So I'm very excited to introduce our next speaker, who is Ben Marsh. He is currently the director at the American School of Kinshasa, but he's been director at lots of other schools as well. Most recently at ISM in Myanmar, which was an LAC school. And so he's going to be sharing how they use their journey at ISM and their current journey at TASOC, and how they're using analytics to create collective efficacy. So thanks so much, Ben. Over to you.
Great. Thank you, Emma. Welcome, everyone. It's so nice to see everybody and to see some familiar names, Lyle and Scott, Piotr and Shabi, and everyone. So great to see you guys. Okay, here is my presentation. And as Emma said, we're at ISM, my previous school. We were part of LAC, and ISM still is, and soon the American School of Kinshasa will also be a part of LAC. So I'm just here to share a bit of the journey that we went through and how we use data and LAC in creating collective efficacy at the school. Okay, so here's the agenda. I'll first just talk a little bit about my own personal data journey and how I ended up with focusing specifically on collective efficacy and how LAC helps to do that in schools. I will be talking a little bit about collective teacher efficacy and why that's so important, particularly for schools and school leaders to focus on. And then I'll be sharing evidence of student learning data results. And this evidence that I'm sharing is coming from the International School of Myanmar. And then I'll talk a little bit about what the next steps are in that journey, and then open it up for any questions or sharing. Okay, so just a little bit about my data journey. Started as a teacher, and for those of you that are familiar with the program Accelerated Reader, I loved it because Accelerated Reader, it gave just loads of information about my students. It told me what reading levels they were at, and then there was a program in place where they could go to the library and find those books within their zone of proximal development that would help them go a little bit further. And what I loved as a teacher is I could take my class and I could show them where they were as readers compared to the rest of the school, the rest of the district. And so we could set goals and say, okay, we want to be the top readers in our entire district. When I moved to Lesotho and I became the director of the American International School of Lesotho, again, we brought Accelerated Reader and we had International Schools Assessment. And this was the data that we used again to set goals and to reach those targets. When I moved to Bangladesh, where I was the middle school principal and then high school principal, the focus then was on really focusing on teacher assessments and looking at how we could improve IBDP results. And that was the data that we used. When I moved to Malaysia, we used checkpoint, IGCSE, and DP results. And one of the things I want to point out about being in all of these schools is that we had, like all schools, we were data rich, but information poor, meaning we had loads of data everywhere. And for me as a leader or even as a teacher to gather that data took a long time. And then generally speaking, when showing data to others, those were one-off events. It would happen once at the beginning of the year and maybe once again at the end of the year. We didn't have continual access, easy access to data. Before moving to Myanmar, and I have to say I'm a little embarrassed about this, that, you know, in like all of our teacher education programs and leadership programs, of course, we're familiar with John Hattie's work. And for whatever reason, it wasn't until my transition from Malaysia to Myanmar that I went back to that work just to take a look at, okay, where should the focus be? And I was a little embarrassed to, at that point, not to have spent more time focusing on collective teacher efficacy. Because as you know, in schools, we have very limited time. And really what we should be doing is focusing on those things that have the greatest impact. And so I'll talk to you a little bit about that. So again, as we're starting again here in DRC and Kinshasa, this is where we're going to focus our time. As a school and as a leadership team, we are going to focus on collective teacher efficacy because of its impact. If you're not familiar with John Hattie's work, he's the guy that's been doing the big meta-analysis in education to really basically tell us what works, what doesn't work. And so if you're not familiar with this, I highly recommend that you get yourself a copy and you pour through this to see where should we be spending our time in education to have the highest impact on student learning. It's a very colorful chart. You can see right there the dark blue dots. If it's a dark blue dot, that means it has that has the highest rating, meaning that's where you should be spending your time. I give you one example of that. If for students in your school, the one thing students can do that will have the greatest impact on their learning is self-reported grades. And what that means for students is that if they're able to predict their own grades before they're taking their assessments, that actually has the highest impact on their learning. And I'm sure you can understand why that would be. But you always have to focus on what's within your domain and your control. And for schools, and specifically for leadership, of all the educational research that's out there, the number one thing that has the highest impact on student learning more than anything else and more than any other group is school leadership, and that is focusing on collective teacher efficacy. And in short, what that means is that if you can build a culture in your school where collectively teachers believe, you know what, no matter what's happening, no matter what curriculum, what resources, no matter who our students are, it doesn't matter. You give us a student and we know that we have the capabilities and the professionalism for that student to grow. And that's what, in short, that's what collective teacher efficacy is that belief that any student who comes into our school, we know that we can help them grow and they're going to grow to their potential. So the nice thing about collective teacher efficacy is that we know how to do it. And I'm just going to summarize this real quickly. So there's 4 successful leadership practices for creating teacher efficacy. Number 1 is creating opportunities for meaningful collaboration amongst teachers. And as school leaders, we all know how to do that in terms of scheduling, providing time, professional development, ensuring that our faculty have opportunities for meaningful collaboration. Next is empowering teachers, meaning that we empower them to be making decisions about the teaching and learning in their classroom. Third would be establishing goals and high expectations. And this is where LAC comes in to really support this work, which is in order to establish goals and high expectations, you have to know what you're aiming for. And this is one of the things that LAC does, is that they're able to collate all of your data that typically is all over the place, and they can make it into dashboards for you as school leaders, dashboards for teachers, for students, so that it's always accessible and you can see what those goals are. And then the fourth is simply helping teams interpret those results and high expectations. And that's setting protocols and meeting agendas for how we're going to do that. All right, some student learning data results. So at ISM, when I first started, what we noticed is that our reading results were not where we wanted them to be. And I'll explain a little bit about that. And then what happened after establishing collective efficacy over several years, what happened to those reading results. And then we had some unintended results. And when I say unintended, what I mean is we had results that were not school-wide results. But because teachers all of a sudden had data and they had it available, and they had training and they had collaborative time to chat and to plan, then they were beginning to identify their own goals and setting their own goals for themselves. And there were some incredible results which came out of that. And I'll show you what those results were. This was a lot of work, by the way, to get to this point, because at ISM, just like all schools, and this is exactly where we are right now at the American School of Kinshasa, we have data everywhere. We have, I think, 15 years worth of map data. We have IBDP results. We have ManageBack. We have SAT results. We have WIDA. We have everything all over the place. We're really a very, very data-rich school, like most of ours are. But I have yet, I've been here for 2 months, been able to collate all that data myself to get an accurate picture of where we are. And the reason is because it's spread all out. So this is why we'll be moving to LAC to pull that data in for us so that it's quick, easy, accessible. And then we can start the really fun stuff of, okay, now what do we do with these results? And this is what LAC did for us at ISM. They put together data dashboards. And so we could look at individual students, teachers could look at classes, As a leadership team, we could kind of pull back and look at whole school results and trends so that we could make some plans. And this is one of the areas that we focused on as an entire school. And now I want to explain this graph for you a little bit. And this is something that we could not do readily with LAC, which was to have this quick visualization of where we are. And so what you're seeing there, the orange line is ISM. And this is ISM's reading results for, I believe this was 2018. And this is from grades 2 all the way up to 11. And this is their spring and fall results. That's the orange line. The blue line is when I asked LAC to create a dashboard for us so that we could do some comparisons. And what I wanted was, I didn't want to just compare ourselves to US public school MAP norms. I wanted us to target the IRCOS average. And the reason we chose IRCOS is because that's where ISM was, and that should be our target schools, is to be either at or above the IRCOS average. So you can see the blue line for 2018, this was the average reading results on MAP for IRCOS schools. If you look at the bottom, you can see by grade level that we were below IRCOS averages all the way up until about grade 9. And then at grade 9, we started to be above the IRCOS averages. And so we put a lot of work. We created collaborative times. We put in norms for teachers to look at the results. We had them look at why it would be this way. We looked at planning, and we put in lots of interventions throughout the school. We looked at our whole reading program to develop consistencies, and those were the interventions we put in place. And after 4 years, you can see a difference. So this would have been 2022, I believe, or 23 results. And now what you can see, we're the orange line, and you can see that ISM at this testing point, we were either at or above the IRCOS levels almost at every grade level. If you look at the bottom here, you can see that there were 3 points where we were still somewhat below the IRCOS levels, but as an entire school, we jumped up to either at or above IRCOS levels in reading because of collective efficacy. Because of our school-wide goals, we set goals, we put things in place for faculty to work on this, and this was the result. Then again with LAC, what they're able to do is we were able to, okay, let's grab one cohort and let's see what the individual impact was for one particular grade level. And so what this black line shows you is not only could we track whole school, how we were doing, but this black line is tracking they were grade 2 students in 2018. And then you can see their results, how they were doing themselves as they progressed along from grade level to grade level to grade level. And for me as a school leader, this was really the first time that I could confidently say that as an entire school, not just one class, not just one grade level, but as an entire school, we set a learning target. And as an entire school, we were able to raise the reading levels of all of our students at ISM and really have a tremendous impact, which was fantastic. Now I'll show you some of the unintended results. So because all this data was available, of course, what do teachers do? They start digging into it. And at ISM, we had a very typical problem that a lot of schools do, which was our high school math teachers were telling middle school math teachers, hey, the grade 9 students, they're not quite prepared for grade 9 math yet. And so what our grade 8 teachers did is they started looking at the data to see exactly why. right? So that they could be very specific with their interventions. And what they did find is that our grade 8 students were scoring very well above all averages in all areas except statistics and probability. And so they focused on that. And they and they started looking at their planning, and they wanted to see what was going on. And what they realized is that none of the middle school math teachers enjoyed teaching statistics and probability. And so that was a very easy fix. And so what happens when you're planning and there's something you don't like to teach, you put it at the end of the year, and you might or might not get to it. So this was such a small intervention. And as a team, they decided we are going to switch where we're teaching in the year statistics and probability, and we're just going to make sure we spend time on it. And here's the results. So year one, 64% of our middle school students were high average to high on statistics and probability. After year two of the intervention, 70%. After year three, 73%. And after year four, 87% of our grade 8 students were now high average or high in statistics and probability. And the beautiful thing about this is because the data was sitting there, and when the
I think we might have just lost Ben temporarily.
Let's specifically look at area that they're having difficulty with, and they were able to focus and target on that, and this was the results. And we had some other areas where this happened as well. AP Physics results, they began looking at that in our year one. This was 1.91 average. If you're not familiar with AP, it's a 1 to 5 is the scoring. Year two, the average went up to 2.58. Year three, 3.5. And year four, 3.52. And again, that was giving them easy access to the data, and then also time to collaborate and set higher goals for themselves. One more result to share, and this was our overall AP results. In year one, that was our average. Year two, it climbed up to 3.58. Year three, 4.15. In year four, 4.2. And so you can see that teachers were able to do individual goals for themselves as well and have incredible results by having all of these things in place. The next steps, and this is where we are at ISM, and I know this is where Lyle is continuing. But as a school, nowhere in anyone's vision or mission does it say, it might, but in general, no one says we want to be the best readers and the best mathematicians in our region. And so we have school-wide learning outcomes or objectives, we have beliefs, and we have particular skills that we want our students to have and have an impact. So the next steps, and this is where we'll be doing this and in Kinshasa as well, is really taking a look at what our vision and mission is. What do we want our students to become? And if this is what we want them to become, then we need to be thinking about, well, how do we assess that? And how do we track that? And we know that that is incredibly important work. And what's even more important is that as we're able to start tracking that, we can take LAC and we can ask them to create dashboards for us so that we can do the same thing, and we can track our students, how they're progressing through as a critical thinker at school, just as we are tracking them. How is their reading? How is their math? How are they doing in particular subjects? Okay, I told Emma it would be a short presentation, and I was right. So that's it. If you have any questions or you'd like me to go back over anything, please let me know.
You know what, Ben, when the data speaks for itself, you don't need to say much more. That's efficacy, right?
Correct, yes.
Really, really powerful, I think, to see you've got such tangible quantifiable results that show just how effective those interventions have been. That's yeah, I think for many of us, where it's a kind of hope and a prayer thing, you know, we're in the stage of that that learning journey where we're like, we believe that this is going to have some results for our learners and for our community, and yet you guys have been doing that hard work for 4 years now, and you've got that data to show that, yeah, this really does make a tangible impact.
And I think there's a lot of, you know, in schools, even when we don't have data dashboards, our faculty and our teachers have incredible intuition, and they know the areas that they need to focus on, and they're helping our students grow all the time. What I love about being able to use the dashboards is that we can show the results. We can quickly share that. It's more than just a feeling. It's like a confirmation of, yes, indeed, this is our core work in schools, and this is our purpose, and look at the incredible work you're doing with our students. It's really empowering to share that with faculty, with students and parents.
Absolutely. And we just had a call with Will Kirkwood at ZIS, and his if you missed it, his will be posted up later today. But they're thinking about, okay, well, if we value this, then the next step would be to share it with our community, and looking at dashboards for parents and dashboards for students, so if this really is our value and we believe in what we're doing, we shouldn't be holding it to ourselves as a school, you know? Yeah, really cool. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Ben? Feel free to put them in the chat, or put your hand up. No questions? All right. Well, thanks again, Ben. I'm going to stop the recording now.